Hello, this is oh my gosh, what's our name? YouTube.
What's our name? YouTube.
Hello, welcome
Hey.
to YouTube Podcast. Today we're gonna talk about the one with our study know-hows episode, where we will just share our experience to each other, how we have been studying, and if there are any good tips and tricks that we use, we would be happy to share. Right, Gigi?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our YouTube podcast. So today it's going to be a very fun episode, I think, because we're going to share our tips and tricks, not really tips and tricks, but really what works for us and what we're studying at the moment and just anything and everything, really.
Yeah, I think it will be great if we could give them like a little bit about our background or like
Yes, that's a good idea.
where we are studying at the moment, because we are studying, so we can share
Indeed.
that, right? Yeah.
Okay, at the moment, I'm studying my master's in human resource management. And my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's was again in human resource. So that's what I'm studying.
How long have you been a student?
God,
At
a
all.
very long time, I have to say. I literally started my master's right after my bachelor's degree. I just didn't want a gap, or I wasn't sure if I'm gonna come back. So the COVID really changed the way of studying. And I think it changed the whole world in terms of work and college and everything else.
True.
So that really changed my experience of learning, and I felt like it wasn't enough. And that's actually the reason for the study of master's at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I chose human resource was before my human resource, I have done a business degree. But as we all know, business is so broad. Unless you are an active person, you really won't be able to make much out of it. From my perspective, because I wouldn't really be that person that's constantly thinking what to do, this and that, more business minded. So I was like, what do I really like that I want to go into? I was like, can't be a doctor, I'm scared of blood, all this. And then at the end, it was like, oh, human resource, because I do like to talk to others. I do like to solve problems, and I do like to speak up for others. So I was like, you know what, that's great. And now till this day, after bachelor's and then this, so after 4 years, here I am still doing my master's degree.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, you really need to, I think, align your interest and like who you are as a person with your major. If you can do that, you'll be much more happier to work. You will be happy to work, do your work. You will enjoy your time there. So that's awesome that you found it.
It was a long procedure, but I found it.
After a long journey, you got it finally.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So for me, my first major was, is professional pianist. And
that's amazing.
then then I studied international studies with the track of human rights and also political science. Then I am studying now data science and project management and consulting all together at the moment.
That's so cool, and that's a lot.
For my master's, yeah. So just to clarify, for my master's, I'm studying data science and PPMC. I think that's like commonly called in short. But yeah, and the reason, I think you talked about why you chose that major.
Yes,
master's,
please
right?
tell me why you chose that.
Okay, so I'm really passionate person about politics and like human rights, because that's my like main major. And while I was working at the International Rescue Committee, I kind of felt like I needed to have more technical knowledge, like data science, data analytics, seemed very important to me as I was working in the International Rescue Committee, because you know, you don't just work with your passion or like, just your soul. You do need
That's
very narrow technical skills, the hard skills. And you really need those hard skills at the proficient level if you want your projects to be done in a very efficient and effective way. So you need to learn those steps, because my main major, the international studies with the human rights and the political science, those majors are very broad in a sense, because like there's not much of a hard skills like that you could apply. I mean, there are of course skills that you learn from that major, but
definitely.
Like data scientists can do, analyze the data, use like Python, R, use all those tools. While I was working at the rescue, I felt like I need to, improve my skills, because I felt the lack of skills and lack of knowledge there. And you, especially in the, world that's keep digitalizing, and like everything is developing to this AI, machine learning.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. All those crazy technology changes, I felt like, okay, I need to get, hang of it. Like I really need to understand it, so that I can apply that data science into my major, and I will be able to work in the field of human rights by applying these two together. Because nowadays it goes hand in hand. Like every nonprofit human rights company has the tech team. They have the IT team, they have the project managers, I think necessary at this time. So
yeah. And what do you feel like is the difference between that? Do you find that, so for me, even if I was to shift into a different major, even to just change my skills, what do you feel is, I don't know, did you find it difficult? Because it's a bit different in a way.
Yes, of course.
How are you able to do masters on those?
Because like I don't have any coding background or like any computer science background. It was so difficult for me.
Of course, it sounds difficult.
Yeah, all these assignments are related to coding, and like you have to learn all those fundamental theories, ethics and all the things that are completely new to me. But yeah, to be honest, it's very challenging. Most of my other, fellow graduate students, they are like software engineers, or they are already project manager. They work at like Amazon or Microsoft. And I was like, wow, they already have those big backgrounds. No wonder this course will feel, easier for them. But then I was like suffering there with YouTube, watching all these videos, like trying to teach for myself.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think that's the best learning that you're getting out of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I first chose my master's major, it was a big commitment, because I had to study 2 years, because I don't have any, coding background or tech background. So I had to really put my foot into it and really commit myself into learning all these different steps. So even though it's very challenging, I'm starting to get a hang of it. So I'm kind of learning it in a hard way, but it's really satisfying, when you didn't know anything at all about a certain topic, but some of it now, that makes you feel happier. So I'm kind of, so I feel satisfied with those feelings along the way, and yeah, it's great.
I guess you're more interested in it now more than ever, because you know what you're doing, you know where you're going with it, and you're kind of getting the hang of it. So I think that makes it more interesting for you, and you're able to just adjust it even in your work life. And
Yeah. Yeah, I
with your
mean,
assignments, everything else. But I think that's amazing how you're able to manage masters with work and with no background of data analytics, you know.
yeah, I think my job also helped me to get into tech because
Mm-hmm.
I was working at DocuSign when I started my master's. So I had to
Oh,
learn tech for my
that's
job.
also with tech. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was already, I think, there while I was working at
Okay.
DocuSign, and then as I started to, you know, get into my master's, I started to learn more about it, started to get more interested into it, and understood how it will be much more effective for me, beneficial for me when I graduate, like what jobs that I'm gonna
Big
do. I
time.
have all the plans. So yeah,
Yeah, clear goal.
yeah. So that was a little long about our background, but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, my question is, what is your like main study know-how that you use on a daily basis for your masters or some, tips that you learned?
Very nice question. Now let's see. I don't actually have a technique where it's like you do 30 minutes and 50 minutes break, you know, those techniques that really works.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I am very into colors and accessories.
Mm-hmm.
And accessory as in like, you know, all the colors, different pen, diary, anything like that. If I have that ready, I think that's my study technique. I know like the title it's such a editing, I think. My title has to be like in red, and then important parts have to be highlighted, and then other little points I use blue pen. And then if I want to circle something, I use a green pen. I
Mm-hmm.
study like that with different color techniques, I guess you can call it color techniques. And then the use of diaries and keeping track of it. I think, because especially with, I'm sure you're aware yourself, even with masters, it's kind of, especially, it's not our first language,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a new subject overall as well. So it makes it really hard to keep up to everything, because it's not high school where the teacher comes after you to say you have to do this, you have to do that. It's more independent learning. You have to be responsible for yourself and your work. So especially with this master's, because mine is a full time, it's very pushed. It's very heavy load of work. So in 2 weeks, it's finished, and you have to give 3,000 essay or another one starts. So you have to keep on top of that, or else you lose out on the grades or any type of percentage with an overall your degree. So I think the main one that I do with me all the time is my diary, keeping a study journal, and just having that bullet point and color coded on my sheet just makes it perfect. That's the way how I would study for an exam, even just to get a assignment started. That's my way to study, I guess. How about for you? How I feel like you have better techniques than me.
I mean, mine is, I think I tried to find a lot of different techniques for myself since undergrad, because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we're not studying in our first language.
Mm,
It's a second language. Even though you understand it, you have to do, the readings. If the others
extra
are doing it
things.
one time, you have to do it like two or
Mm-hmm.
three times to completely
Definitely.
really get into um, you know, the readings and like all this assignments and research, especially, the academic
Totally
ones.
feel you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the academic ones are no joke in the beginning. So I think it was like there's no such like easier way to study than
Of
to just
course.
do it. So you just have to sit in the library, you just have to read it again and again, have your coffee, and do it from the beginning again, again and again until you get a hang of it. And I feel like I spent like most of my undergrad years in the library. So
amazing. And
so I would
do you
just
feel
go
like,
there after school, after classes, and like just
yeah,
study all day for the
well,
rest of the
at
day.
at least you study. Sometimes I go in just to sit in the library. It's so peaceful, But my
Just
question
to
is like,
meditate.
do you feel you're the type of person that reads, or you need to write it down, or you need to summarize it? What's your type?
Yeah.
You
So
just look at it, then you remember, or
okay, yeah. So there are different ways to learn. With your hard work, you need to combine it with the technique. So the
oh,
one
definitely.
I use is the Feynman technique, and then also the
Okay.
Pomodoro technique. So
Okay.
Feynman technique is basically you're putting your main subject into, main idea into simple 1 or 2 sentences, as if you're explaining it to to someone who have no idea about your major or about that certain
Okay.
subject. So in other words, you're basically simplifying your reading or your findings
That
into few
does sound like
sentences. And then you would create like cards or anything. So I used Quizlet a lot. It's an
Okay.
application. Or I also use like physical cards too. You would just write down the main ideas and just read it through when you're in the bus, or like if you're in the coffee shop, you just have some
Yeah.
time. You can just go look through it. That really helps me. Um, and another way that I do is I love writing it by my hand instead of typing it. Because like when you type it super fast, you forgot what you even wrote. But when you write it with your hand, you actually remember, like
Yeah,
most of it. So I love,
exactly.
yeah, I love handwriting. All the subjects and like all the main ideas into my notebooks, to give myself a time to read through it like a
Yeah.
couple times a week, because like I think there was a study that you don't remember something that you learned after a week. You don't remember like most of it, but the way to remember most of it is if you read what you read a couple times, after a few days, you will remember most of it when you talk about that subject a week later. So
Yeah.
instead of reading it once, try to read it like twice or 3 times. After a couple days, reread or rewrite the main
That's really true.
things.
It really like recaps straight away in your head because when you're writing, you are aware of what you're writing and you're obviously noting it down. So I think your memory picks it up. And you
Yeah.
will forget, but when you look back, it's just straight away, everything just comes back to you. You're like, oh yeah, I remember this. That's also what I do as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really works.
Yeah. And the next thing was the Pomodoro technique, which is
Okay.
basically giving yourself a break. But let's say you want to study like 2 hours, instead of sitting there for 2 hours continuously, it will be very unproductive. Rather, if you break that 2 hours into like 3 or 4 sessions with the break time, it will be much more fun because you will be looking forward to, taking a break. And when after a break, when you study, your brain will be, much more
More
refreshed.
fresh.
So it will be easier to accept any knowledge that's coming from the outside. So I think mine was, so it depends for each and every person, because some people's concentration time is like around 25 minutes. I think that's like 20 to 25 was average
Okay.
according to University of Michigan's study, I think it was, or Minnesota. I might be confusing this too. So there was a study that the professors gave to like freshmen to, senior year students to just time when they study, and when they start to, get distracted, they would also write down the time. So after analyzing all of those different timetables, they saw that average time was 25 minutes. So
long.
But when I did mine was 40 minutes. So how I break down is 40-minute and then 10-minute break. 40-minute study session, 10-minute break. And when I do it with the Pomodoro technique, I actually finish most of my assignments pretty quickly and efficiently.
Wow.
But if I just study without any, timer or anything like that, I would just grab my phone or
I know,
get distracted easily. But if I have like, you put your phone on don't disturb mode, and like you have your timers and the playlist is there and you're just coding, you got this. It's much more simpler and easier.
That's true. I think that's I don't know how you call it, but I don't think the technique works for everyone. But it's important to find the one that works for some people. For me, like I wouldn't be be able to sit 40 minutes straight away. I would have to at least, I think mine is actually the same as the study. It's quite short. I think 22 minutes max is the full concentration time that I can focus on. But that's only because there's a lot of distraction, not so just the phone, notifications, or you just do anything to avoid it. I look at mine and I'm like, oh, that's a nice color. Let me use a different pen. So for sure, after 20 minutes or 25, my memory is gone. So amazing for you for 40 minutes. You found your technique.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was because I'm a pianist. From the young age, we tend to sit for hours.
Yes.
So that might be the influence of it that I just learned. I used to practice like 2 hours straight. So
at least, that's what you need to be for a pianist.
Yeah. So there is an application that I would like to recommend. It's called Forest, and I think it's available on Android too, but I know it's on Apple. So I mean iPhone. So it's like you set a timer on the application and you shouldn't touch your phone at all. If you successfully, reach the time that you set, there will be a tree growing inside the application. So you will be basically growing trees and growing forest on the application. It's like your own forest. But if you touch your phone or like, use Instagram or something else, the tree will die. So
that is very interesting. I would be so motivated now. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Thank you for that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cute. So the trees are like different kinds. They have like cherry blossom. They have, regular trees, but yeah, it's like seasonal. It changes.
Right after this, I'm gonna get that app, and that's how I'm gonna start studying. Because and especially this time we need to have our trees, save the trees. So for sure, I think it's a way to push me to do my studies my last minute.
True.
Okay, that's so interesting. And then I also want to just add on the note taking. I'm sure everyone's aware of OneNote. It's really, if you really get the hang of it and if you really know the ins and outs, it's basically a digital notebook. And for people who like to look at clear things, more on the aesthetic side, it's so neat. But for me, how I use it is, how obviously our lecturers put a PowerPoint on it? You can get this PowerPoint on OneNote, and lecturers tend to just talk as they talk about the presentation. So while then you can be, depending on your study, you can be sketching, you can be drawing, or you can even write on the side with the pen, or even you can type away. So when you look back, when it's exam time, it's so useful. but this is a person they uses. And when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, on this point of the PowerPoint, the teacher said this, and I can see this on my OneNote and the note that I've taken and the little diagrams. It's actually technology is improving, I'm sure you know, but it's so easier. Study's getting so much easier, I think.
Yeah, on top of that, there's also notability. So what it does is you just press record and it will record what your professor said and like write it down as a transcript for you. So you don't have to take every single notes.
And I'm just wondering, so in mine, like so I also bought a recorder as well for the same use. I didn't know about the app, but this was like a few years ago, and lecturers don't allow us to record sometimes. It depends teacher by teacher,
Oh yeah,
but
of
most of
course.
them are like due to, I don't know why, but they actually don't let us record, but depending on kind of the learning disability you have or any kind, you can. But I think that's kind of in a way to motivate students to come into college, to classes and contribute and to be able to have one-on-one with each other or the teacher to socialize in a way, I think. Because the whole COVID changed because that's when recording came in, the classes got recorded, everything was saved online. And like you said, the transcript was written there, so it made it so much easier. But bit by bit now, that's going out the window.
I don't know. I think that might be in where you are only because like here, a lot of the courses are recorded and you can just rewatch it if you didn't get to attend to the courses, especially if you are graduate. You
so nice.
there could be sudden emergency or things could come up. So you could just watch the Zoom recording if it was an online class. Even some, in-person classes get recorded on Zoom, so you can just watch it online. But if you attend courses in campus, that's when you can use the notability if you just want to write down the main points, but you don't want to write every single thing down. You can just put the notability on and then, let it do its job. And while you get the main points, but if you forgot something or some things you want to look back into it, you can just go back to the transcript and just search the word and you will be able to see what the professor mentioned in the lecture. So for me, personally, it was much more useful when I was in undergrad because like I was able to just put the record. Of course, you're gonna ask from your professor because like you have to get the permission when you do a voice recording in the States. I think it's some kind of like I think it's like legally you can't record unless that person gives the
I
permission.
think it's like a GDPR kind of thing, for data protection, etc.
Yeah, anyways, and then the next one that I use for notes taking is GoodNotes. But I use this for my undergrad year only. So I haven't used it for a while, but GoodNotes is, like you mentioned, similar to OneNote. You can just have it on your iPad, use your pen to write down the notes, like organize it the way you want it to be. But yeah, I think similar as OneNote.
Yeah, I think I've seen they are quite similar, but it's actually, I think it's so fascinating how as years go by, the apps being developed and how much they can do for you, how much is out there to support you during your studies.
True.
I think it's on us then to make use of that and to get best of that, which is really hard to do, but there's a lot of people who does get the best out of it, but I'm just so fascinated about Forest anyway.
Yeah, it's really cute. You should check out.
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, for readings, do you have any like tips or tricks that you do beside highlighting?
And for reading, I think because of my master's, the reading is quite heavy. I'm doing my thesis dissertation now, so it's a lot of reading. So what I'm learning right now is skimming through it. I have this problem where I have to read everything slowly and really understand what it's meaning by the sentences. But now I've got to a point where that's just not a technique anymore. Like, it's not even a technique, sorry. That's what I had to do when I was reading. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel like I've read the book or even the textbook. But now the research, because it's such a heavy load, I've learned to skim through it a lot. So, like you said, I would kind of read the abstract to see, is this really important? Because it really summarizes for you.
Yeah.
And then I'd highlight just important words and what I really need within that text. Because the way I'm reading at the moment is I'm just reading the heading and the heading and the abstract. If it has what I need, I will skim through it. Like, skim means like kind of really read quickly, not word by word, just really quickly. And then if I see a paragraph that's really important, then I read it, and then I would note it down on my notebook by hand. That's how I'm reading at the moment.
Yeah. Same. I also like to skim and scan. And at the same time, like the beginning and the last paragraphs of the paper tells you everything about what's gonna be in it. But if you just needed details, you can read in more detail. But if you have like short time, but you just wanted to know the main idea of it, read just the beginning and the ending, because like in the beginning it like introduces you and like tells you top of the iceberg, but in the conclusion it tells you like the main ideas. So beginning
and especially like with a lot of research papers, you're definitely right. That's the way to skim and scan.
True. Yeah, true. And another thing that I also like to do is voice record. I use voice record to basically read the articles, and then I listen to it while I'm taking a walk or anything like that, because like there's no audiobook for research articles, so you can just read it for yourself, because when you read it you like understand like I think 70% of it more deeply, and when you listen to it again you understand 100% of it, in my opinion. That's how I felt. So I do that. So instead of listening to music, I like to listen to research while I'm taking a walk, but that's not all the time. I also enjoy listening to music while walking, but yeah. But yeah, that's also another know-how that I do. Or you can just simply explain what you learned or read to others, to your friends or like your family members that and then like say it. And
that helps a lot actually as well.
Yeah. You memorize much more longer.
Yeah, much more longer, and then because you're having conversations, debating, it really stays there for a very long time.
True. Yeah. So do you have any other like know-hows, or should we wrap it up here?
I guess, let me see, I was gonna add something at the end, but it's just not coming to my head. But I guess we'll wrap it up. But I just want to add that everyone has a different way of learning, and I think it's amazing to hear from each other what works. Because for me personally, I wouldn't really go exploring different ways to study because I'm so used to what I do. But hearing from you now, that kind of allows me to have a change with my routine. And now I want to have the forest, which means I'm going to be more productive. And with the podcast listening, I also do listen to podcasts, but I didn't really think to listen to research podcasts.
I mean, so I think there's no research podcast, but you can just read
like within the top, but like even within the topic of whatever the topic that you're researching or learning, there is something at the, but I've just never really thought that much for it because most of the time I do spend on the road, so that'll be definitely a technique and study I'll be implementing. And I think that's it. we're trying to survive our masters and we've got this, but it's been nice to share all this with you all.
Yeah, so to wrap it up, one last thing that I would like to add is on YouTube there's like study with me sessions. I love those study with me sessions. They have like lo-fi playlist in the background. You can study with someone else, or you
That's true.
there are also like Discord channels where you can study with others. Just join the room and listen to some like lo-fi or any genre of music that you like. I really enjoy that. Also, there are like okay, I forgot about it. Anyways, that's it.
Yeah, but that's the one I actually really want to try. Usually I have like lo-fi music on because it really helps me concentrate and really focus on the study rather than my surroundings. So the music really helps, but I've always wanted to try study with others because I think I've seen on Instagram where they do study with others and everyone's in a different country, but they're all studying something similar. That also, I think it's going to help for others to improve English or any other language they're learning.
Yeah,
but it's also a nice way to get to know others.
And if you have like if you're a fan of certain musician or artist, you might search their name, and if you search like study with me, you might be able to find some, because like BTS has lots of it on YouTube. I really enjoy that personally. So you might
enjoy that, I think.
Yeah, it's nice. He's just staring at you there. So
great.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you so much for tuning in to YOUTO Podcast. And there was an episode about the one with study know-hows, and we just shared our, little bit of personal study know-hows. I hope it was helpful or useful or relatable. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
Stay tuned. Bye.
See you every night after night. Can we forget about time? 'Cause I wanna adore you. Oh, I wanna. Sweet like gelato 되고 싶어 Valentino. Rockin' on a high note, got a loving is soprano. 너 만나고 나서 절대 놓지 않아 바빠도 다른 여잔 없어 no. 'Cause you're the one and only girl. Promise, I ain't tryna play games with ya, girl. Honest, you are not a side character. Every day after day,